Game 3 tonight. What are the keys for the Pacers to get ahead in the series before Giannis potentially returns? Maybe he plays, maybe not. Plus, the next adjustments for the Pacers in the series, some stats that stand out so far. Adam Friedman and I will get to it all today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Friday. Congrats, you made it through the week, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today it's game day, game 3, Pacers Bucks tonight. First Pacers home playoff game since 2019 against the Boston Celtics. Gamebridge should be rocking. 5:30 start time will be interesting. It's a gold out, and I am really looking forward to all of it. And Adam Friedman, who was talking to me all the time the last time the Pacers were playing playoff games and home playoff games, joins me to talk about it all. We get into some other adjustments to look out for the Pacers, where they're at in the series, the importance of tonight's game, how certain guys are playing, who can play better, Haliburton and his need to get going, air quotes up there, because we don't really think so. And we have a lot to talk about even beyond all of that today. And we were recording during the NFL draft, so you get some random draft reactions during this whole thing. It's a great episode. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's just get right to it. The last time we did an episode talking about a Pacers playoff win, the title was Oladipo's big night. Pacers win game 6 over the Cavs. It's now 6 years later, and they did it again. He used to talk with me every single day and write for Indy Cornrows. It's Adam Friedman. Adam, they did it. The Pacers won a playoff game. It happened.
I'm already greedy. I want to win the series. I'm getting greedy really fast.
Well, look, things look good for that potentially with Giannis hurt. And now Chris Middleton apparently questionable for the game. Didn't do a lot of practice. Pacers have to take advantage if he cannot play. We won't guess on injuries unless you would like to. What we will talk about is game 3, which is tonight. Look, I talked about game 1 by myself and how important it is to be up in a series and the odds of a team winning a series when they win game 1. I kind of feel similarly about game 3 when a series is 1-1. Like the farther along a series gets, being ahead is just more valuable. Like the other team has to be the team adjusting. You get a lot of momentum. You can win at home. Again, Giannis is still hurt. This is a big game, Adam. Do you agree?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I've seen the Pacers win a lot of game 3s and still lose series. I can think back to a Heat series in 2013 where they lost in 7 for winning game 3 against LeBron at home. I think I was at that game.
You can think back to Cavs Pacers in 2018, the series we were just talking about.
I couldn't remember exactly if they'd won game 3 that time. So I think it's important because we don't know when Giannis will come back, right? So every game Giannis isn't playing, you need to win essentially. And it does seem like the Bucks are kind of at that stage of everyone on the roster is super old, that at least is important. And so the more games you win and the more you make them kind of they're only going to have so many good games at that age, right? You kind of seen it from Dame, right? He's played 4 good quarters. Happened that one half of it basically destroyed them. But the more you can kind of just drag out an older team and it's easier for this young team to win 7, for example, if they're playing a much older Bucks team. So that's sort of the goal.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that part of what'll be key in every game, as you see with this old Bucks team and the Pacers trying to run, is keeping up in the first half, right? If Dame can go for a billion points every first half, but the Pacers are only down 5 or they're ahead or whatever, they'll have a good chance because he can't do it for 2 halves. We've seen that.
And they made him work, right? He actually had to work for his 26 first half points, right? The many he had, right?
26.
He was taking tough shots and making them because he's Dame Lillard in the playoffs, and he seems to just I don't know, he's an amazing playoff player. From what history shows that. But yeah, he had to take really tough threes, run off screens off one leg. So if he makes those shots, you kind of have to be okay, it's more like when he was just taking open 27 footers and nailing them. You're okay, well maybe right. Force him to try for that shot.
Okay, so I have heard a lot of chatter about, I've listened to a lot of podcasts, read some stuff, whatever, about the series so far. And I think one of the most interesting things I've heard about people talking about the Pacers winning game 2 and what it means going forward is people keep saying, oh, the Pacers defended much better much better in game 2 than they did in game 1. And I get why that's being said. They gave up like the same number of points. They gave up more, technically. It was 108 and then 109. I might have that backwards. About the same either way. What I think was different from the defense specifically is what they did after a stop. Like they were running and it led to offense. And so that is when, and look, we've known this for forever and ever and ever. But that's when they've been at their freaking best all season, is when pace is their priority and they can use their defense to get there. They can not take the ball out of the net as much. Like 108, yeah, it was 109 game 1 and 108 game 2. If they give up 109, that should be enough for them to win like almost all the time, given how good their offense is and can be. And so if they maintain the level of defense we've seen the first 2 games, I'd feel pretty good about their chances in any game, including game 3. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that I am too reactive to what I think are interesting and not correct takes from the first 2 games?
To me, it seemed like it was about stopping momentum. So in the first game, the Bucks they were in it for a quarter and a half. And then at some point, the Bucks just got really rolling and the momentum kind of got a hand. Every time in game 2, the Bucks hit a big shot. The Pacers pushed the pace and got a bucket. It seemed like, I mean, maybe not every single time, but most of the time it felt like you could even hear it. Like the crowd would get really hyped on a big game 3 and they would go right down and Siakam would have an easy layup. And then it would kind of just like, and they did a great job of sort of stemming these like kind of tides in the game, right? At one point they were up 10 and then the game got tied up and they went back up 8, right? They just found a way to sort of not let the Bucks just completely just get this at home momentum. And that is mainly pace, right? Every time the Bucks made a big shot, the ball was immediately on the other side of the court. The Bucks had to immediately get back on defense, and you had the Pacers taking easy, shots inside 2 feet that were just like, I mean, they were basically layups for Siakam most of the night.
Yeah, shots they like and that they're comfortable with, right? And the 2 biggest swings of the second half, late in the third, it got to 1 or middle of the third or whatever. And then they scored like 3 times in a row. I can't remember the exact first shot. I believe Myles Turner hit a 3 to get them out of that originally. And then the one I've already brought up a million times from the fourth quarter that was a big swing was the Bucks get it to 4. Jay Crowder misses a wide open 3. Pacers run and score. And then the next possession, Ben Shepherd turns into Dr. J for 3 seconds. And I watched that layup again now from multiple angles. The bench reaction to that Ben Shepherd layup is out freaking standing. Everyone is going crazy because it's, where did that come from? People are recreating it. That was a nuts shot. So like their reactions to or answers to big Bucks runs was really important. Like that's so demoralizing over the course of a game. And most of that came from like the Ben Shepherd reverse was a hit ahead in transition. And like that got them out of a lot of stuff. And it just wears the Bucks down, right? They're too old to keep up with that. For a whole game, their transition defense has sucked, even dating back to that in-season tournament loss they had to the Pacers. So to me, yes, their defense is important. If they can continue at this level where they're, holding the Bucks to the numbers they have in the first 2 games, which are very similar, I think they have to feel good about their chances, not only because it's not that much to give up in the current NBA, but because it lets them get in transition and always have an easy answer to even the best Bucks runs.
Can I just say Ben Shepherd, when he runs across the floor, it looks so like effortless. Like he moves so quickly and just moving across the floor. I don't know if he's actually that good, but he moves with like this just momentum and flow that I was like, oh, that guy might be a good NBA player because he just like knows how to move in the court and be in the right spots. It's kind of like almost like awe-inspiring to watch because some players like Turner has never moved that like effortlessly. He kind of has a little hip in his run, but like Shepherd just like flying around. It's kind of crazy.
I said this when Kayla and I were doing our like assessment of the Pacers after 15 games. Like even who knows how good Ben Shepherd will be, but he just looked like he belongs like right away. Right. And like, it just matters to me.
He's got like the speed of an NBA player. Like the game's not too fast for him. I think part of it with the Pacers, right, is they use their offense to play defense, right? If the Bucks want to play a game to 135, their Pacers are all for that. They're like, let's go. And like at some point, right, Brook Lopez isn't going to make, what did he start making his first 5 threes, something like that. Like he's not going to do that forever, especially on the road as we go into Indiana, right? I mean, like at some point he's not going to hit 5 25-footers. Like you just got to the odds will come back. The Pacers shot so bad from 3 in that first game was part of also the reason they struggled, right? They just couldn't get that shot, but they figured out in the second game that like there was a lot of easy 3-foot shots there. They just sort of pushed the ball into the center and drew guys out. And then they also got a lot of good in momentum threes, right? As they sort of open things up all of a sudden. They use their offense to play defense because they're not really actually going to stop anyone, but they can make the game so fast paced the other team kind of like has taking bad shots because they're trying just to match.
And a key part of that was turnovers. They had 12 in game 1. They had 5 in game 2. The Bucks went from actually lowered theirs from 10 to 7, but 7 extra chances is a ton, right? Like that mattered a lot. And they didn't even hit the offensive glass as hard in game 2. The Bucks did change that a little bit, and that was part of their transition struggles, ironically. But I think that more chances was good too. More chances to get in rhythm. Bucks have to play more defense. Bucks are tired. So I think that formula is what they'll need. If Giannis is still out, he's doubtful for game 3. I'm operating under the assumption for this series that doubtful will mean out for him. As soon as he's upgraded to questionable, I'll go, okay, this is probably.
I assume he's out through the weekend, but we'll see. I mean, that's.
I am guessing. Like McDermott had a calf strain. I don't know how similar the severities are, but McDermott's during the regular season kept him out for like 22 days, right? Giannis's 3 weeks would be next Tuesday for basically right when game 5 is. But he can heal faster. And
at first, I would say if like this Bucks team probably isn't going to win the East. I mean, they aren't beating Boston, but then again, Boston might lose to Miami, so the East might be wide open for all we know. If we did this podcast on Wednesday before he made like 43s yesterday, something crazy like that, I would have said
43. Insane.
Like what is the point, right? I would say, what is the point of rushing Giannis back if you probably aren't going to win the East? Like this Bucks team needs another year, right? They just docked a midseason coach. They probably have some roster tweaks they can make. Clearly, like Dame is a playoff player, so he seemed like he's the right player to have for Giannis in the playoffs if that's kind of your goal. But now I don't know, maybe the East is more wide open, or maybe I'm overreacting to one crazy Miami Heat shooting night. Yeah, I mean, I think
I almost tweeted. Everybody talked for forever, including a lot of Pacers fans, about avoiding the Celtics side of the bracket. I wanted to tweet after the game, but I was like, "Ooh, good thing the Pacers avoided the Heat side of the bracket."
Well, you better have home court then. I mean,
yeah. Golly.
Not that it would matter. I mean, the Heat went into New York last year and smoked them in 5 games. I think.
Holy cow, the Heat are scary.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about the series too is the Bucks are a much older team and these quicker turnaround, right? Play Friday and Sunday. Like the Pacers, like they're super young. I mean, they're just a super young team. I mean, their oldest players are Siakam is 30. At least the main Siakam's 30. Turner's 28 now, and then I guess McConnell's probably their oldest player.
McConnell at 32, but he's playing faster this year than he ever has.
Yeah, and those are the 3. But otherwise, they're playing a bunch of guys who are like 25 or younger and who want to run. Like they just want to run and be out there. And that's what the Pacers will do. I mean, that was the recipe of the first 30 games when they were looking like one of the better teams in the NBA was just run. And even as Haliburton sort of struggles, he at least creates. I think you told me this one time of like maybe it doesn't matter you put around Haliburton, he creates good shots for everyone. And he's still, even though he's not quite, looking like the player he was the first 30 games, he's still doing that great job of not turning over the ball and making the right pass almost every time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not quite everyone. Like you need some level of spacing around him, but I mean, every player who's come to the Pacers since they got him better.
I mean, I don't know. Aaron Nesmith, I'm not sure before the year I've been like, this guy's going to be like one of the Pacers' best scorers, and all of a sudden he's out there doing that. I mean, Siakam, yeah, he's always been a really good player, and he's been really he's got a ton of playoff experience too, so he's not afraid. He's like give me the ball and I'll score in big moments. So. But he even, is going up a level because he's surrounded by a guy who just gets him in the right spot every time.
3 players in the NBA this season passed the ball more than 61 times per game. It was Jokic, Sabonis, and Haliburton, who are all over 70. Like they were over 10 passes per game thrown over the 4th guy. And potential assists per game, Haliburton was second at 17.8. And assist points created per game, he was first. And I don't need to keep going through this, but
if only Haliburton was 6'11", man, this would be like.
I mean, Jokic is also very high in a lot of these lists.
Well, Jokic has got the passing of a point guard and the shooting of, I don't know, not quite like the best shooters, but a really high level shooting, and sort of has like the center skills at the same time, and that's like, I mean, he's an impossible player to beat, I think, and he plays well in the playoffs.
Hey guys, quick little break here so we can talk about 2 wonderful groups of people. First up, the good folks over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level, like the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class-exclusive Google built-ins is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Plus, the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder with room for up to 8 expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capabilities with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing when an adventure calls. The Pathfinder is there to answer. There's also the Nissan Armada. You can check them all out right now. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop now at nissanusa.com. Let's also very quickly talk about BetterHelp. This next segment is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp, and sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to somebody who is unbiased on your life. So today, I want to say how I really feel about something. You might even be thinking the same thing this week. Stop reacting instantly to draft picks in any sport, NBA, NFL. Let it play out for like a little bit. Even if it's not who you necessarily wanted, maybe the player will end up being good. I used to do this all the time. I will talk about draft picks for my job as they happen, but I am now less receptive to the idea of the immediate reaction and grade with the draft, but I get it. It's part of fandom. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team or who they pick or how people react to said picks, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. So you nailed the transition I want to make, which is talking about Haliburton, right? Because I put on the side, for those of you listening on audio, does Haliburton need to, air quotes, get going, right? Big talking point after game one. He took 7 shots. He made 4 of them. We asked him about it. Talked to a lot of team, like, how do you get him more than that? Even if he shouldn't take way more than that. I don't know what the exact number is. When Siakam's playing like this, when Turner's playing like this, when their offense is rocking, you don't need him to take 15, 16, 17, 18. Just 7's too few. But I put get going because what he did in game 2 was fine to me. 10 shots, good passes, a lot of assists, kept the ball moving, drew in 2 Bucks defenders basically every time I was on the floor. They crushed Milwaukee in his minutes. Does he need to change it? Does he need to be if Giannis is playing or in future rounds, he's got to be like 20 and 10 or better every game, right? But like in the current context of who they're playing and how they're being defended, does he need to get going? Or if he just draws attention and keeps playing like this, is that enough for them to win?
Well, I think it's 2 things. Game 1, it seemed like there were a couple times that his teammates could have passed him the ball for open threes instead of them taking open threes.
Yes.
McConnell had one egregious one where he got the ball and Haliburton's wide open. And obviously TJ McConnell, the not great 3-point shooter, should not be shooting that ball. So that would be nice if he could get some of those shots, right? Like, I don't know if he needs to be taking on his own because clearly he's struggling, whether it's an injury or whatever's going on. He's struggling to actually like kind of create his own all the time. But like if he's standing open for a 3, he's a very good 3-point shooter, passing the ball. He's a better shooter than some. And at the same time, like he has got to be less, when he has an open 3, just take it. Like he was a little bit hesitant in the game 1. He was better in game 2 where he took a couple of shots. Like he just got the open bucket and took it. And like the thing about the playoffs is like, it's different than the regular season in that like, you can't always go for the most efficient shot possible. If you're the best player on your team, take the shot that you think you can make, right? You can take what would normally be a low percentage long 2 if you just make it a good rate, right? Siakam has hit so many, free throw line 2-pointers this first 2 games, but he's made a ton of them. So who cares if he was shooting, what he was shooting on them? And Haliburton's has been a really high percentage 2-point shooter. He's got to take tough shots at times. He hasn't had to yet. I think the game is close in the 4th quarter. That could change. Siakam seems like he wants the ball when it matters most. Maybe just give it to him and kind of clear out. But he's gonna have to take, if it comes down to it, some tough. He's gonna be willing to take the less efficient play because he's just the better player and should be able to make it at a high enough rate to win a game.
Yeah, so I agree about a late game situation. It doesn't matter to me yet. Like if I know that sounds stupid to say, but similar to what I just said about the regular season, he's 2nd in the league in passes thrown per game in the playoffs. He's at 71.5. Jokic is at 80. Even with every Nuggets possession is like, yeah, just get it to that guy. Potential assists per game. So what he's doing with those passes, Jokic has 14 potential assists per game, right? That's a lot. Tyrese Haliburton's at 20 and a half. 20 and a half.
Jokic has like 35 points a game, right? Or what's the other?
Yeah, a ton.
I mean, he doesn't have some assists because he's just scoring because he just scores.
Right.
And he takes shots that he makes at a really high rate.
That is 3 more than the second highest guy, which is LeBron. I say that to say I think I mentioned this on the show, but I was talking to someone else who covers the team about this. Like, what would the reaction have been to Haliburton in game 1? I'll make sure I have up his game 1 specifically, but I believe his potential assist in that game was 20. and he finished with 8, right? And a lot of those were like Myles missed in the lane, Jalen Smith missed in the lane a few times. They went 11 deep. The bench didn't perform. If he had 9 points on 7 shots and had like 13 or 14 assists, no one is talking about his shots after the game. Everyone's saying, oh, very clearly the Bucks were trying to get him to pass, and he did, and other guys finished plays. What really happened that game, among many things, to be clear, is they were trying to prevent him from shooting, and he got the ball out, and then it didn't lead to anything. Like, no one actually scored from those passes. So
yeah, well, that's what I mean. By some point, you got to just take tough shots. If guys are like, if you're the best player on your team, at some point you got to look around and be like, oh, we're down 10. This game's getting out of hand. I have to shoot the ball, like, because your other guys aren't stepping up, and that's what the best players are supposed to do. At times, it was his first playoff game. I'm not sure maybe he's kind of understood. Maybe someone kind of yelled at him about that after the game and kind of told him, here's what you should be doing. But
so right now, I think it's fine what he's doing, but I think, like you're saying, there will be a point where he needs to be taking those shots against better teams, or even just to keep whoever is on him, or whatever 2 guys are on him, right? A lot of times it's Patrick Beverley, but Malik Beasley comes over, the big guy comes up, whatever. There's 2 guys on him, just to make, if they don't ever think he's going to shoot, like, they can be ready to recover a lot easier. They don't have to, the way they shift their weight or what they're prepared for matters in a different way. So just like 12 to 15 shots. If he keeps being defended this way, I expect the Bucks to adjust because they just got smoked and they have to find a better way to slow Siakam down. But if it continues similarly, I think he's like 10 is close to what is required. They scored a bunch of points. His passing has been really sharp, and everyone else is open. They just, I mean, they have 3-4 threes in game 1 that didn't even hit the rim. Like, clearly a mental
hurdle. 8 of 38, right, from 3 in the first game.
And 8 for 38, yeah, horrible.
So it's a law of averages. Eventually, they got back in game 2 to something that seemed more normal.
Yeah.
But what is the Bucks' adjustment like to stop Siakam? I mean, they were sort of playing Lopez on him, and they brought in Malik Beasley a little bit, and they were kind of just throwing guys. Like, they don't really have the defender, right? The adjustment is Giannis, I guess, would be the guy you maybe throw on if you could. Right. But like, I just don't know what, like, you put Pat Bev on him. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I just don't know if the Bucks have the players to actually adjust Siakam and maybe just exploit it the rest of the series.
It's really interesting because, to me, they can't totally go to this, but so if it's Lopez on Siakam and Portis on Turner, let's say they switch that to normal matchups, then Myles Turner's just going to set a bunch of screens, right? Because Brook Lopez is slow, right? So I'm not saying it'll be like Turner's going to dominate like Siakam has, but that's still going to get you good shots because Turner's versatile in those situations.
Well, and as I think what's been obvious in this playoff, Turner looks like, I mean, you can feel the playoff experience under him. Like, this is the first time. Like, I mean, I feel like in his early career, he was known for making some not great decisions in big moments, but you can feel it now this playoff series. He's confident about shooting his 3. He's not hesitating. He's taking it every time. Seems to be the right spots on defense, right? Like, you can kind of just feel that he's like, oh, this is the guy who's been on the Pacers for now almost a decade, has played in a decent amount of playoff games now, right? Between the Paul George era and the Victor Oladipo era and this. And like, you can just kind of feel it that he kind of he's not going to shy up when the moment gets kind of bigger, I guess, but you never know.
Last time Turner was in the playoffs, he shifted to his natural position of center right before the series because Sabonis got hurt. And he was great. He was good again. Like, Bam was better, so people don't remember it, but Turner was good against the Heat in the bubble.
I think he still got a little exposed by Butler, like on some matchups, but Butler was also just like the best player in the playoffs that year.
16, 11, and 4 on 57-43 from the.
No, I mean, I just think I remember Butler just dominated that series and dominated the playoffs for the better part of, until they ran into LeBron essentially.
And again, Bam was better, so like, no one will ever remember what Turner did. But the playoffs before that, when it was him and Sabonis and no Depot against the Celtics, he was not good, right? But he looks much better now. He's a much more mature player. So if they flip that in the post, then maybe he'll just look really good. But a lot of what keeps happening too is because of the way that Haliburton's getting defended, his guards end up on Siakam. They're like, great, post up, easy basket. Like, he can just drill it from 10 feet and in. So I don't know what they can do to easily adjust to Siakam that doesn't leave some obvious leak somewhere else. One more break here, guys, so we can talk about the good folks over at LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That is why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the right tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. They'll help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a pro on LinkedIn who know that small businesses are wearing a ton of hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So that's why LinkedIn is always finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a new feature to help you write job descriptions to make it even faster and easier. 2.5 small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You could be next. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
I think exactly what you just said they'll probably do, right? I guess I didn't think far enough out to think, like, I guess they'll just try that because to percentage-wise, I'm sure Turner's
You'd rather have Turner do it.
Yeah, but then if Turner scores 35 on you, which he could do, I mean, he's done it a couple of times. He could do it, I guess. Or maybe then you find a way with Turner in the pick and roll, you get Haliburton a little bit better shots because it kind of creates a little bit, you end up with Lopez on Haliburton, which allows him to do some more stuff there, stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, I think you probably nailed the adjustment. I just don't know if that like really works. And also, like, if you were able to stagger something correctly, you still can find ways for him to get matchups. So they'll try to keep Bobby Portis with him the entire time if they do that, but it's going to be hard because they just, Siakam could just score on Portis. Like, I mean, I don't
That's
think
what I was going to say. Bobby Portis is good, but like,
he's not like he's a,
lockdown.
Yeah, he's not who's the best wing defender right now in the league? Probably, Wembanyama, I guess. Right?
Yeah, he can guard anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'd say Kawhi when he's healthy, probably.
Yeah, right. I mean, Portis is not either of those guys. So, like,
Jones.
Yeah, exactly. He's not like the Bucks are just in a bad spot because they're without their best player, who was the second or third best player in the league, and who is like the reason. And they don't really have like a deep bench because they put a lot in to kind of have this 1-2-3 punch of him, Middleton, and Dame. And so without that, and the Pacers team actually is like not sort of a walkover because they know how to play his Bucks team. They beat him a ton in the regular season.
You didn't see AJ Green do an isolation on Ben Shepherd and think that the Bucks had a deep bench? That didn't make you think they had a deep team?
I mean, the bench isn't deep when I'm like,
that's a real possession that happened in the playoffs.
I mean, so like, the bench is not deep when, I am not as tuned in to every NBA team the way I maybe was 3 or 4 years ago when I was doing the podcast. I still pay attention to the Pacers, but every other team I kind of much. But in the playoffs, if you're playing guys I don't even recognize and I'm like, that's a sign because I know like enough NBA players like, oh yeah, that's that guy, and that's the draft pick from this year, and he's a recent one. Oh, maybe he's like, when you're starting to play guys that like I don't really remember or recognize, that's a concern that you don't have a deep enough team for the playoffs.
Yeah, their bench is odd, and they're relatively healthy. Have been. We'll see what happens if they don't have Middleton. That's going to be.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's something you just not play Dame and just give up the game and hope they're all healthy for Sunday.
No, you can't do that. Do you remember that? What year was that? The Rockets Warriors series where everyone's like, "Do they just not play Harden for Game 6?" And then
when Chris Paul tore his hamstring or calf.
Yeah.
When they definitely should have won that series.
I know that was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, the big, I guess, other X factor here is like, does Dame probably can't pull out 3 more, but Dame could probably pull another game out of himself. Like, win it by himself. I mean, he is that good of a playoff player.
That's another adjustment I wonder how the Bucks try to get to is like, how can they spread out Dame's effectiveness, right? Currently, he's at 61 first half points and 8 second half points. Like, clearly it's taxing to do what he does in some way, right?
Yeah, well, especially because the last game, instead of just sort of walking up to threes, he's having to run around screens and get off the ball. And it's hard. He makes them at a great rate, so he can definitely do it. But it's just like, it's the constant motion. It's kind of the way people used to play Steph Curry in his prime, right? It's like, put Steph Curry in every pick and everything, make that dude run. Curry's great, but if you can get him tired, he's just a little bit less effective, which just can help you in the margins in a close game.
And the other way to make Dame get a little more rest is Patrick Beverley have 8 assists like he did in Game 1, and he was not nearly as good on offense in Game 2. Well,
that's Pat's entire career, right? That's Pat's entire career. It's like the guy is like a really good defender. I don't know if he still really has his really good defending skills, but at least, at one point he was, I think, I don't know, elite maybe is a strong word to say that, but a very, very good defender. But he was never really a point guard. He was just like the guy you threw at Russell Westbrook or something like that in the playoffs, or at, I think, Steph back in the day too, a little bit.
All right, can I just throw some stats at you that surprised me through 2 games about the Pacers and then see what that could mean for the rest of the playoffs?
Do it.
Okay. Number 1, currently of their top 8 guys who've played in the rotation, who do you think has the worst field goal percentage?
Either Shepard or McConnell.
Oh, neither.
Okay. Wow.
The answer is this is a twofold thought. I'm going to say the answer, and then I'm going to keep talking about that player. The answer is Aaron Nesmith, who is shooting 31.6% from the field so far, but is second on the team in assists per game. Aaron Nesmith is second on the Pacers in assists per game.
So is that because his game one was so bad?
Yes.
Because I guess at some point I kind of during game one was like, oh, there's another missed shot. I stopped thinking who missing it. I'm like, everything's just missing. And I stopped kind of counting in my head of like who's missing. It's just everyone couldn't hit a shot.
Like he was a really good shooter in the regular season, and he's moving the ball well. It's like Haliburton. He's making the right plays. Like he could just be better. All of a sudden, his defense has been good. Middleton had some trouble with him last game. So that's really interesting.
McConnell, until that third quarter recovery, hadn't made a shot the entire playoff series, right?
He was really good in the second half, but he was not good before that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he recovered that field goal because I don't think he had made a shot. I bet he made one shot. I mean, some of it was like he had these teardrops that just like weren't falling. Like they literally would hit the rim and roll and drop. Like it was like kind of bad luck at one point, but he recovered it in that third, fourth quarter where now he seems like he should be playing.
McConnell's actually third to last. Second to last is somebody who was efficient until the second half of the last game, and they were bad at a time when the Pacers were good, so it kind of got lost. And that's Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin's actually at 35%.
Oh, that makes sense. He bricked a lot of shots.
But I thought he was good in the game overall. So
yeah, well, because to me, he doesn't need to hit a ton of shots. It's the he can push the pace, right? He's got really good at just like he is down the floor, moving fast. It's the high energy that he brings, right? He flies around. He just like brings this energy level that's like, oh, that guy's like gonna try to block everything and get in your face and run through every screen kind of thing.
Yeah, and Toppin's still beast on the glass.
I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to be this great shooting. I mean, when he hits a couple of threes, it like really kind of changes the whole momentum of the game usually, but he doesn't need to hit them for it to be effective.
Okay, thing two, stat.
All right.
How many Pacers players do you think are averaging more than one turnover per game?
Well, you said they had 5 turnovers the last game or the second game. In the first game,
I forgot. I already said that part.
I don't remember how many they had in the first game, but I know it was more than 5. Averaging more than one, probably.
Averaging more than one turnover.
So probably 4.
Oh, 3. Very close.
3.
That's impressive. That like the Bucks are a fine defensive team. The 3 players, and one of these players, by the way, is Jalen Smith, who didn't even play in game 2.
Oh, that's what we haven't talked about a little bit, right? Is like maybe the bench should be 8 deep and not 11.
8, correct. Brian Windhorst always says you play 8 and trust 7, like in the very biggest moments. And Rick went to 8 in game 2.
And McConnell's probably that 8th maybe you don't trust.
No, if you're gonna Ben Shepard was good, but you don't trust rookies like in the
That's true. No, I have. I mean, we talked about this on text the other day. Like, I have such PTSD from McConnell in the 2020 bubble series of where he like literally was just constantly exploited every pick and roll and couldn't make a shot. And he has been actually, I don't know if he guarded Dame perfectly well, but his energy and like just making Dame work was really good on defense. The full court press is like that. That was super valuable. McConnell has been a good playoff player. I remember the Philly series early in his career. He basically beat a Heat team in a game by himself because he was just so high energy out there stealing everything. So like he can be a good playoff player. And hopefully the second half game 2 sort of righted him, but he for a little while looked like he maybe was unplayable.
Yeah, you could tell the Bucks like in the course of a regular season, there's no one like TJ McConnell in the NBA, right? Like there just isn't. So if you don't have like a lot of time to lock into him, it's just like, oh crap, he scored 16 points, so we lost. In the playoffs,
he's so unassuming, right? He's able to play like he's short and maybe he's not super fast, but the guy is like super high energy. Hits his spots every single time and hit that fading away off his back foot 6-footer every time it feels like it makes the right pass and just can just constantly full court pressing you randomly. Like that's what he does so well.
I feel like I'm going to annoy people with how often I bring this up, but like I remember in game 1 so vividly, he beat his man, he got into the paint, he turned around, he had that 6-footer he loves, and Brook Lopez was just right there. Like he's like, okay, I'm just going to send this into the third row. Like they're locked in that he wants that shot, right? And it was an easy block. Yeah. Like when the playoffs, when they're zoned in on what you do, that's part of the
playoffs that makes it different and tougher, right? It's like you can't trust everyone. You have to have a short leash with guys at times, and teams exploit things. Who got picked in the NFL draft too high?
Former IU football quarterback Michael Penix goes 8th overall to the Falcons.
Before McCarthy?
Yes, before McCarthy.
Wow. Okay. Anyways.
He went to IU. I have to be happy. He didn't finish.
No, I understand why. You're fine. You're good.
People don't know that we're locked in on the NFL draft right now. Locked on NFL draft exists if you would like to hear reactions to the first round. Okay, that was the other stat that really stood out to me, though. The Pacers' offense is so good. The Bucks' defense is fine. When Giannis plays, it's good. But if they can't turn the Pacers over, that also really hurts their ability to get easy points, right? And catch up to a Pacers team that's playing really well. So that it really impresses me. And McConnell's at 1.5 assists and Haliburton's at 2.5. Given their volume, that's also fine. That's not bad. It's just a trade-off of the NBA. So that was the two stats I really wanted to dig into was I think Nesmith will shoot better, but he's also passing really well. And the Pacers in general are doing a great job taking care of the ball.
Yeah, Nesmith's been great, and especially the hockey assist, right? The ball gets kicked out and kind of makes well all the way around the perimeter. I don't know if Nesmith is actually making the assist. I guess it seemed like he's being the one actually making the actual assist, but just being part of that sort of process has been really good for them. Just keeping the ball moving.
All right. What's any adjustments or small things you think the Pacers might go to in the next game or so?
I mean, I don't think they're going to adjust. I think you just got to continue to do what they did last time well, right? Is make the Bucks work, right? Push them. So what will be different is they'll be at home, so they won't have the momentum feel as much. Right? There won't be that crowd momentum that could shift on you all of a sudden, right? So it'll be easier to weather some runs by the Bucks. But you basically have to just keep the game close for 2 or 3 quarters, and then basically expect that your sort of youth and energy can win out in the late third, fourth quarters. And you got to make Dame work, right? I think just constantly making Dame work for a shot is the best way to sort of keep the game close, right? He might hit 25 points again in the first half, but if he has to actually expend energy to do that, then that's the key. And then I just can't imagine. I mean, I know Lopez is a good 3-point shooter, but is he going to hit his first 5 again on the road? I mean, if he does, good for him. Let him take that. Honestly, let him take the 25-footer. If he's going to make it that many times, you might lose it. If you're going to lose a series that way, it's the dumb way to lose a series, but it's not as dumb as just letting, and a player like Dame Lillard score just many easy buckets.
Yeah, Dame had a bunch in the first half of game 2, but the Pacers weren't down 30. Instead, they were right there, and then they can keep up with his exhaustion and win the second half instead of being down 30 and being able to take advantage and cut it to 12, but they were down so much it didn't matter in game 1. So even if he goes crazy, they just got to keep up.
So if we go just based on the regular season, the Bucks were 4 more wins than the Pacers, 4 or 5.
2.
Bucks won
only
40,
2.
2. Pacers won 47, Bucks won 49, right?
Yep.
Okay. So without Giannis, the Bucks probably only win 38 games, give or take. I mean, I know he missed some time, right? So the Bucks probably without Giannis are not a better team than the Pacers in terms of wins.
I don't know. I don't think so. Definitely not.
So this is a series that should be theirs. They have home court now. You got to show off in game 3. And it's a weirdly early start time for some reason.
No, it's not for some reason. It's because it's a triple header on ESPN.
Yeah, I understand why.
So strange in the NFL draft. Second and third round is still pretty compelling to people.
Well, for us on Central Time, it's I got a 4:30 game. I better finish
up working still. Yeah, the Bucks in it. Half the Bucks fans will still be at work before the game starts. It's crazy.
It's fine. It's 4:00 on Friday. It's almost summer. People don't work on Fridays anymore.
The Pacers did what I hoped they would, which I think will be awesome for fans. They're opening up the plaza for a party at 2.
Oh, that'd be fun.
A good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be a great crowd. I mean, the Pacers always have good playoff crowds, and it's always exciting. And the city shows up for playoff games for this team especially because they're exciting. I mean, this is a fun team. This has probably been the most exciting Pacer year since 2018. You can maybe say there was some good hype around 2018 before they made that first playoffs with Oladipo, but this is a team that it's fun. There's some animosity with the Bucks. There's just there's some rivalries between Dame and Haliburton over Dame time, and there's some all that kind of stuff. And it's 2 Midwestern cities. There's just it's fun.
Pride, Midwestern pride.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I give you 2 adjustments?
Okay.
And then we can be
I gave you basically none. So yeah.
Well, it's naturally after a team wins to not think they need to, right? Okay, that's how you win. And then the other team will change something. And then you go, oh, we have to react to that or be ready. That's what's so fascinating to me. Okay. The first thing I talked about this with Ty yesterday. I wonder if when Dame is not on the floor, because that's been the thing that stunned me about this series. The Pacers keep losing the minutes with Dame off the floor every game. How is that happening? Right. Do the Pacers for the 12th possession of the season go zone when Dame's not on the floor? They have never gone zone with this team at all. But it seemed who on the Bucks is getting into the lane or really threatening as a passer at the nail? Just try it. When Dame's out there, obviously you can't do it, but I don't know.
They've been staggering Dame and Middleton, right? Correctly, at least. So they're at least
a lot, yeah. There's
right?
very rarely none of them. Yes.
So I guess Middleton could a little bit. I mean, Middleton just going to try to score himself, right? That's sort of what he does, isolation and score. So I guess play zone kind of forced him. But I feel like, I don't know. I'm not sure zone really works in the NBA outside of like really specific instances where you either have a unique player that can fit it or like you can kind of like surprise the team. I mean, it works a lot in college because college kids panic around a zone, but like these NBA players don't.
You nailed what it just worked for the Bucks though. Was early in the second quarter of game 2, they went to it and the Pacers were like, "Oh, zone, crap." And then for 5
does it work for an
possessions,
experienced team?
And then they figured it out.
But does it work for a team that's sort of like experienced? The Bucks are not like the Pacers are a young enough team where like you could see how the young players get, especially first game in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff, right? You could feel it too in game 1. Like there was clearly like this kind of like, oh, it's our first playoff game of this kind of era. We're a little bit nervous, but like I'm not sure like an experienced team is like, oh, we see a zone. Like these guys have been playing NBA basketball for a decade, almost all of them. Like they know how to beat a zone. That's sort of like that's how you get to the NBA essentially.
Yeah.
That would just be my only argument against that.
A few possessions, throw them off, hit them with a surprise. Okay, the Vikings have traded up to 10. Adam, it's happening.
For JJ McCarthy.
It's happening for sure. Yeah. Okay, I don't remember how often they played together in game 2 specifically. It happened a little bit. I think it was the Pacers did a good thing. Rick Carlisle did this correctly to adjust to having no minutes without one of Siakam or Haliburton on the floor. That should have happened in game 1, but whatever, they got to it. I think there's a next step to me, and that is if McConnell is out there in this series specifically, it has to be McConnell Siakam because McConnell Haliburton hasn't worked very well in this year. It was great in the regular season. Like I asked them about it, I wrote about it, and to be fair, in 13 minutes of this series, it's +4 with McConnell and Haliburton together. So maybe I'm overthinking this, but I think they have to try their best to limit those minutes going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, you just don't have enough size or not really enough defense. That's the kind of the problem, right?
Yeah,
with that lineup. I mean, the problem is they've had Nesmith and Lillard, right? Basically play identical minutes, right? Every time Lillard's out there, Nesmith's out there, and that's sort of been the strategy, right? We're going to throw Nesmith, Nembhard. I'm sorry, wrong name, Nembhard. That's sort of been the goal, right? It's just throw Nembhard at him and keep that kind of going, and just let that be sort of like the play, right? It's just because Nembhard sort of got the. I mean, she's just got it's a way to provide Haliburton so he doesn't play much defense, and also Nembhard is probably the better of the two, obviously better of the two guard defenders, and he just like has this sort of attitude where he kind of likes to match up against Dame. It feels like and get in his face. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the best move. But so that means maybe you're pulling Nembhard and Haliburton at times off the court together if you're trying to make this work. But
yeah, it's a tricky balance, right? Maybe you have to do it just to rest Siakam at all for however many minutes that would be, but it's harder now because of what we talked about, teams lasered in on McConnell and what he does than it was in the regular season when they can just be relentless with their paint pressure and this is hard to defend. There's a lot of speed. So that's just an idea. I don't know if it's a requirement. It's just something I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about you're right. Once you lose a game, you adjust, right? I just wonder if like we talk about the Bucks don't have a lot of great adjustments, and if you just kind of stick with where you're at and kind of can you like because teams do win series in 5, and so they just repeat the same success. They don't need to always adjust. And the Pacer team on paper seems much better than this Bucks team at this current stage, especially as more Bucks players. They're getting hurt, and I just think the more minutes Milton plays, the more Dame plays, it just feels like they could get hurt as well. Like the series should be going the Pacers' way if they can just sort of keep up what they were doing before. And I don't know how the Bucks really like take the Pacers out of their element. I mean, because like without giving up something else, right? We talked about, right? If they go for Siakam, they give up Turner. If they let Haliburton a little more free, then he scores, right? Like the Pacers just have these options right now, where it's like maybe you're like there's not like a obvious move for them. Maybe the Bucks' most obvious move, I guess, is somehow to play all their guys 44 minutes, right? Their best 5 players, but like that's not really feasible with guys of their age.
Yeah, I think that's true, and the age part's a big part of this. Can Doc Rivers invent a time machine before Friday at 5:30 p.m.?
I will say Rivers' career seems like it's just like every time he gets a player just right at the wrong time in his career, right? He got James Harden at just too late of James Harden. He got Chris Paul I got Chris Paul kind of right in his prime, but he got Blake Griffin just at the wrong time. And right, like he just like misses these guys by like a year or two. And that may be how he got Dame, right? Dame, he had Dame 3 years ago. This wasn't perfect, but he just able to coach Dame just the wrong time. Same with
Have you seen Back to the Future?
I have. It's one of my favorite. Well, yeah, one of my favorite movie series.
So they need Doc Brown instead of Doc Rivers, and then they could have the DeLorean to make their players younger. That's the answer.
Sure, 28-year-old Dame on this Bucks team probably wins this series, and then this Bucks team probably wins the championship. I mean, a 28-year-old Dame with 28-year-old Giannis.
You know what? You know what's
5 players in the league.
Now that we're at this point, we're talking about Back to the Future. I'm allowed to bring up super serious stuff. Draymond Green said this on his podcast after game 1 of the series, and I really had to think about it. He said, even without Giannis, this is the best team Dame's ever been on in the playoffs. And I was like, that might be right.
No, what was the year they made the conference finals? 2019? 2021?
Yes, that's correct. 2019.
They lost to the Warriors. No one was beating the Warriors those years.
No.
But that team was pretty good. They had McCollum, who was in his prime, and Nurkic and a few other guys. I mean, this Bucks team, it kind of feels like they kind of reminds me of those LeBron Cavs teams in the 2008, 9, 10 range, where like they kind of kept making move to keep their superstar happy, but at some point they kind of just like kept trading in younger for older, and the older eventually became just too old, right? They had guys who had been good, but they couldn't find the current good star to go with, and that's where it feels like the Bucks are, right? I mean, you look even Boston. Boston is basically like everyone on the roster is 5 years younger than every best Bucks player, right? I mean, except for Drew Holiday, and so like they traded 30-something-year-old Drew for a little bit older Dame, and they thought, they just it's kind of the disease of having this great superstar that you want to put the best team around, but don't always have like the money or picks to make it work. And you're not a destination city, essentially. Can
I now convince you that Draymond Green is right pretty easily? Here is the starting 5 of the Damian Lillard Conference Finals team. Are you ready?
All right, yeah.
Dame, great player, great, easy. CJ McCollum, he was pretty good. At the 3, Mo Harkless.
Got the tough one.
At the 4, Al Farouk Aminu.
That's also
and
a
at
tough
the
one.
5,
Nurkic, right?
No, they did not have
Nurkic
yet.
They didn't have Nurkic yet? Oh, wow.
At the 5, Enes Freedom.
Enes
Kanter. This Bucks team is better than that team, I think.
That Trailblazer team, what happened that year? Where they should have made the conference finals, right? Like there was something.
They played the Thunder in the first round. That was the Russ Thunder, but no one else. And then they played the Nuggets in a crazy 7-game series where McCollum.
That's right, where Jokic had like 1 billion points, but no one around him. Literally, he had nothing around him. I don't think Murray was even not on the roster, or not good yet. I think maybe was what it was.
Yeah, Jokic averaged 27 and 14 that series. Jamal Murray was really good, and no one else was good enough.
He had like a triple overtime game where he scored like 55 points. Am I imagining that year? Was that year?
Yes. Yeah, CJ McCollum outscored Dame per game in that series.
McCollum was really good in his prime. I mean, I know he wasn't like Giannis. I mean, but I would say McCollum is probably as good as maybe it's not. Middleton, where would he rank? Right in terms of at the time, Middleton's probably the 15th, 20th best player in the league, and McCollum was probably in the same range, maybe a little bit lower.
So the best team Dame has been on,
the Aldridge one from 2016
was the Aldridge one. Yeah,
I knew you were going to say that one.
But that team didn't do anything. So
that was the league was so the Clippers and the Warriors were really good, and they're just like there's too many good teams ahead of them.
Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway,
I mean, I guess he's not totally wrong.
Doc Brown gets hired by Doc Rivers, and maybe the Bucks will be better.
Yeah, we were saying it's like the Bucks will somehow pull something out of their ass.
But we can't. We can't forever be like, well, they're older, and not be like, well, the Pacers are younger, and maybe they mentally get in their own way and have a bad variance game and lose. So
you got to think though at home. I mean, you got to think the home crowd's got to. It's an uplifting thing theoretically, but you never know. People get tired. I just think what we saw with them Siakam was sort of the thing that's like, okay, if all else fails, this guy is not getting nervous at this moment, right? He's sort of figured out how to because you could see it, right? And then it's game 2, like every time they needed a bucket, it was like, let's find Siakam. It'll be good.
The JJ McCarthy era of my life has begun officially.
Well, he's won every place he's been. Every place he goes, he wins since high school.
That's always the lead analysis.
I think someone was saying he's lost like 1 or 2 games since high school, like 3-year starter in high school, and lost 1 game and lost 1 time at Michigan, I think, in his 3 years. maybe twice in Michigan. That might be twice in Michigan, but still, he always wins. He's a winner.
Did not enjoy the Kirk Cousins era, so I am excited for something new. How about that? That is it.
You didn't enjoy. I guess that was Case Keenum, right? Case Keenum who threw the touchdown pass to Stephon Diggs, right? That was not Kirk Cousins. So never mind.
You're on it. Yeah, their best year was Keenum, and the best Kirk year team, Blair Walsh missed a field goal that I could have made, so that was fun.
in the old U of M stadium when it was freezing cold outside.
Freezing cold, really windy. Ugh.
Yeah, I remember that.
No more comments. The many Colts fans who are listening, the 15th pick hasn't happened yet. I hope everybody is very happy. Seems like a lot of people want that Bowers guy from Georgia. That is the end of my football. All right. Looking forward to game 3 tonight. I'll podcast as soon as I can afterwards, maybe on the floor, probably drive home because it's not that far. This was great, Adam. It was fun to talk about the playoffs with you again because we haven't done it for a good Pacers team in a while.
We haven't had a plan to talk about it.
Injured Vic for a full series, injured Sabonis for a full series. It was like pulling teeth.
I'm sure we did a podcast when they lost the play-in game to the who did they lose the play-in? The Wizards in 21.
Well, remember the whole year we were like, they can't guard Russell Westbrook. They can't guard Russell Westbrook. And then sure enough, they couldn't guard Russell Westbrook.
That was the last time we did a playoff-ish game, and that team was so depressing.
If they had Karis LeVert today on that team, they might have won because he's actually a good defender now, but they could not guard Russ at all.
Man. I don't know. That whole year was the most depressing.
Everything post trading away Vic and pre Haliburton was just like, oh my
God. Well, I think the shining light of that year was it showed ownership that they had to spend money for a good coach. And so they went out and spent money for a good coach who, even if maybe you argue that he's not the best coach ever, like he brings a level of competence and stability to help you grow an organization versus a young hotshot who clearly made everyone mad.
Yeah, look, I'm a lot higher on Rick Carlisle than the fans are, which whatever. That's not worth talking about right now. But
I think he's great. I mean, this team is doing exactly what you think they should do this year, if not exceeding expectations. So what else do you expect from them? And he's got great reactions. His face onto certain things is hilarious. I mean, he is just like, I remember Rick Carlisle from the 02, 03, 04 days when he was a little bit, the hair, and he was a little bit less reaction. Although he was still kind of curmudgeonly. I remember one time he was saying the Pacers had to win a game 6 because once he doesn't take the second round matchup to 7, like that's not a thing that you should do as a 1 seed. And the Pacers then went and beat the Dwayne Wade Miami Heat in 04 in Miami in game 6. But like his reactions now are like just like beyond funny. It's like dad level, just like rolling his eyes, not happy at like calls, and it's just funny to see.
He makes his emotions very obvious. You know what he is really good at that no one gives him credit for? And I'm going to do it now because the Sixers just lost because they sucked at it. Rick Carlisle is super good at calling timeouts, man. He is like 10 steps onto the floor, like in the paint already.
And I think the thing you have to remember is like, it hasn't been this way for a long time, maybe since Vogel, like out of timeout plays, the Pacers run a very competent, they get buckets out of timeouts. And the Bucks screwed this up a couple times. The Doc is not that great at it, right? But like he does like the little things that you kind of need out of a coach to like.
I haven't even talked about this in the show. I have never ever seen a team call a timeout to avoid an 8-second call and then get a 5-second on the inbound.
I know, like
timeout. Holy moly, that was terrible.
That's what I mean. Like he does these little things well, and he clearly has some skill with younger players, right? He had the same with the Bucks or not like the Mavs and sort of the post Dirk years where he was. He does
Luka helped him a lot, I think, with that stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, he clearly has some connection with like how to like build an offense around a younger speed, and I mean, I don't know why people are hating on him. I mean, he won a championship as a coach. He's doing what he should be doing, right? And maybe in 3 years, if they're not as
the headliner is the defense, right?
Yeah, but like I don't know. The offense is kind of the show. Like his offense is the defense. I don't know at this point.
I agree with you. To be clear, in
2 years people can start complaining. But like at this point, he's taking a team.
Well, also let's see the rest. Let's see the rest of the series.
That's true. If they blow this series and something, then maybe. But like if they win this series, maybe, and then in 2 years we can start being like, okay, he can't get this team to this point, but he got another this point.
See the rest of the series. Yeah. Okay, this was awesome. We'll be back after game 3. Talking whatever happened. I will predict Pacers win game 3, and then game 4 is a lot of chatter about Giannis leading into game 4. But
I agree.
I am very wrong about this team all the time, and part of what's made this season so interesting is no one can predict what the Pacers will do. Talking game 3 tomorrow. Thank y'all for listening. See you soon.